Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tailgate Talk. We're your hosts, David and Nick. Nick, say hi to the people.
How's everybody doing?
All right. So we're going to talk about the Clemson Boston College game that happened on primetime Saturday night in Chestnut Hill. We had Clemson 5-0 going up against Boston College, who was 2-3. It was a really cool tribute for Wells, the Boston College alum who gave his life saving lives during 9/11. It called their Red Bandana game. I thought it was a really, really cool tribute leading up to it. The whole video showing what he's done and what it stands for and what that means to be a Boston College Eagle. I thought that was really, really cool. I mean, they give every student there a red bandana on their first, I think their first week of classes, which is just a really cool way to instill in that whole uh, student body what their core values are. So, Nick, you want to chime in on anything you thought there too?
Yeah, I mean, you said it when the students get the red bandana at the beginning of their journey at Boston College. I'm a fan of the school honoring him in that way. I think he paid the ultimate price, but he was a hero to many. I think that people, not just Boston College alumni or students, but I think everyone should know his story and should know the value of being courageous and for being loving towards one another and just treating and being honestly just being there for other people and trying to help as many people as you can. So I think it's an inspiring story and it's an honor to have played them in it. Just happy we got the dub.
So let's jump in there to that game. Final score was 31-3. At halftime, though, it was only a 10-3 game. With Clemson getting a late touchdown at the end of the half to take the lead, going into halftime. I think early on it looked like Clemson came out flat. I think that their offense struggled to find a rhythm. You saw DJ with a couple of bad passes. You just saw it struggling to get the offensive line established and really not a whole lot of production from Shipley in that first half at all. I mean, when it came to uh, the end stats, Shipley only had 33 yards on the ground. So I think that Boston College came out inspired. I mean, it's a late night game. It's cold. You're home. You've got your fan base. It's red bandana night. I mean, everything was set up for Boston College to play out of their minds, and I think they took it to Clemson the entire game as long as they could. And it really showed in that first half, I thought.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we said it last episode, but I know that Boston College always plays Clemson tough. Like it's a rivalry game with the O'Rourke McFadden trophy being on the line. Um, they always give us their best shot, and I think that the extra juice from the crowd, that atmosphere, being a former like it there's an obviously people know that playing at home is beneficial, but at a night where it's a night game, like you got the crowd into it, like I can tell you firsthand experience, like that juice, that energy is different. So credit to them for coming out and playing on fire with their defense looked good. Um, they hung with Clemson for I think a lot longer than I think a lot of fans would have wanted to see. And I think that if they keep it up, they can start building something and start being kind of a factor in the ACC Atlantic soon.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Hapley's had some really good defensive game plans the last 3 years now, counting this year against Clemson. You go back 2 years ago, had Clemson on the ropes at Clemson during COVID year when DJ his first start. And then last year as well, another tough game, as Clemson had the entire season. But Boston College is a team that likes to wear you down and try and out physical you. And I think in the
Yeah.
first half they did a good job. I think they had set the terms for that first half with some help from some Clemson miscues. I mean, we had a couple of drop passes, one that would have been a touchdown on that first drive. We had that bad pick backed up in our own end zone that turned into points for BC. It was, they were looking to set the tone. I think that they, for the most part, in that first half, they really did.
Another thing that I thought in the first half that it was more so an individual performance, but you can kind of credit it to their offensive play calling, which like Dracovic ran around and avoided the Clemson rush with a hurt and injured offensive line. Like, he knew that he had to either get out of the pocket or get rid of the ball. And I don't think we had a sack in the first half. I could be mistaken, but I think that they held us without a sack until the second half. So I think definitely in that first half, like, Dracovic used his legs to get out of things, and it kept the offense, or their offense, on the field. And if he had been able to do that in the second half as well, we could be looking at a different result right now. Like, it could have been a lot closer. And Boston College, I mean, you let any team stick around, you run the risk of getting beat. And I think that if they were going to do that, Dracovic was going to have to keep doing what he did in the first half. But I think luckily for Clemson, or not luckily enough, because I'm sure that there were some adjustments that they made to ensure that he couldn't do that anymore.
Oh yeah, I mean, stats wise, Clemson had 4 sacks total. I think you're right, Nick. I don't think we had one in the first half, but we were. Clemson's defense was on for Dracovic case the entire night, rushing him, getting hurries. It was that was one of the good takeaways to take from the defensive side. That team is starting to figure it out there. That unit, the defensive line starting to get healthy. It sounds like we might have all that D line back for the first time this year against Florida State. But it was good to see Xavier Thomas first time this season. Only played 6 snaps, but he made his presence felt during those 6 snaps. Should have had 3 sacks. He should have had 3 sacks.
I mean, I think everybody knew that he was coming in looking to make his bag this year, and I think that obviously with the tough foot injury to start the year, it's not how he wanted it to go. I think he's on a mission. He looks insane. He's playing.
Still hurt.
He's still hurt. He can't push off that left foot, yet he still gets 2 sacks in 6 snaps. Like, it. Oh my gosh!
They had him. They had him lining up on the right side of the defense, going up against the left tackle because he couldn't push off his left foot. So he's hobbled, still going up against probably left tackle is usually your best lineman. That's the guy who's got to block the blind side of the quarterback. So you're going up against probably their best offensive lineman, and he's in the limited snaps that he had, he made his presence felt. Like, once he gets back to full health, he's going to be a problem for offensive lines.
And then realistically, you look at that defensive line and prep and meetings, who do you key on? You got Miles Murphy, Tyler Davis, Brian Brzee, and Xavier Thomas lining up, not to mention KJ Henry, who's playing out of his mind this year, Ruka Roro, Etanusa Rubin, Trey Williams. Like, it's who do you focus on? You can't double to any of them. You got to block the other guys.
That's not even starting to bring in the pressure that West is starting to dial up. The verbiage, snap the ball, send them all, which was a favorite hashtag for Clemson fans over the off season with that promotion for West, expecting some major pressure to be turned up. We finally started seeing it this week as he's starting to get more and more confident with that young secondary growing up and locking down in coverage. I mean, Nate Wiggins had his best game of the year.
Mm-hmm.
You got Andrew Makuba back. We're starting to expect probably to have Sheridan Jones and Malcolm Green back soon. I think Sheridan Jones more likely maybe next week, but Malcolm Green maybe one more week out. I'm not quite sure yet.
The one thing about Sheridan Jones is that he was listed on the depth chart this week as a starter, not like a backup. But I don't know if he was listed last week as a starter, or if that means anything. But he was listed. They did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Clemson's been they listed Xavier Thomas last 3 weeks on the depth chart. I think they've listed all the defensive linemen for the last couple of weeks. I don't think that they changed that. I think if you're trying to key in on those injuries, you got to look much more closer towards the when the injury report comes out. And Davo's been pretty cagey about when that gets released. Usually it waits until Saturday before the game, so we may not
Right.
know until right before kickoff who's good to go and who's not.
Well,
I
either
expect.
way,
Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say either way, like you said, Nate Wiggins played his best game. McHugh was back. Hopefully, Malcolm Green's back. They're starting to grow up a little bit, and all they needed was a little seasoning. And I think that's what part of that
You're
seasoning is
fat.
growing. Part of that is growing pains, and part of it is learning through your mistakes. Like the best teacher is failure. They did not play well at all against Wake Forest. They came back against NC State, did well, and now they're starting to kind of use that to propel forward. And that's honestly, as a coach, that's what you want to see from your players, is that they don't run and hide in a shell. They try to prove that bad performance was not right, that it was just an anomaly. So
Mhm. So with all that being said, first half was definitely more struggle bus than I think any Clemson fan would want.
yeah,
Second half started out just like last week's second half did. Defense came out with some big 3-and-out. Offense came out and scored. I mean, it's like, I think that whatever was said in that locker room at halftime worked.
yes.
The team came out way more focused and ready to dominate like we expected them to start out with. I wish that they had started out like that, but I mean, you got
Right.
to look at it like you're coming off of two highly emotionally charged ranked wins, one on the road in overtime, another one at home in the Valley at night, with everything that comes with that. Just it's they were saying all the right things leading up into the week, but I think those guys were emotionally spent going up
And
to
they
Boston College, seeing them as 1-2 in the conference, not expecting much. You know, they thought that they had it in hand, and I think that showed in the first half. The second half, they got told what they needed to do, and they executed.
and don't also forget this week with Florida State, another supposed to be another primetime matchup, another team that's looking good that took NC State to the brink. Hopefully not, but maybe some of the guys were hoping to get out in the second half where they could rest up for that game. Maybe they were, like you said, kind of took a little bit of advantage and was like hoping that they could get out of this one easy. I think it proved that even in the ACC, that's not that good. You can't. Everybody can beat anybody. That's college football. So I think that I know that the players in that staff and that locker room definitely weren't looking ahead, but you can't fault them if they were kind of hoping to be out by halftime.
Yep. So stats wise, DJ finished the game 18 of 31. He had 220 yards, so got above that 200-yard mark for the sixth time this season out of 6 tries. So that's a marked improvement. 3 touchdowns. He did have that one bad pick, which I think he got fooled. I think he got fooled by the what Jeff Hapley was doing with that coverage and just didn't see that linebacker poking out in the flat. So bad pick there, but he rebounded, got three touchdowns after that. Clemson rushing as a group ran for 144 yards, at averaging 4.5 yards per clip. So even though like Shipley with his 10 carries only got 33 yards, you had Phil Maffa was solid with 36 yards. DJ again a big factor in the run game. You had Cade Klubnik get in the game for 2 plays. He got a yard, so he added to that. I know that a lot of Clemson fans probably wishing to see a little bit more of Cade, ideally in a blowout situation, or just to see when he did get in that series that they would have given him that third down play. Sounds like from what I've been reading that a lot of it has having to do with they're trying to script in some wildcat with a true quarterback plays for Cade, and they wanted to get him in earlier, but it just wasn't going the way they needed it to. So
Yeah.
I think they're still being very cautious with his development, trying to make sure that they nurture his confidence and get him in when he's ready to get in.
Another thing of note was BT Potter missed his second kick in 2 weeks. I don't know. As we start the conversation of time to move on, I'm kidding. He's I love BT Potter, great player. I wouldn't be concerned about it. It happens. It's kicking. You can't always get it in. So
Was it like a 43-yard attempt, right?
I
Something
think
like that.
so. I think he
Yeah.
still has his record of perfect from within 40. Um, so it happens. Um, yeah,
We're not
I
trying to
think
start a kicking controversy here.
no,
That is
no,
not what we are gonna do.
no. Um, Going back to what you were saying with the Wildcat stuff, I do think that you're right that they wanted to kind of like they wanted to get it in earlier, but they couldn't. Um, I think that'll you also kind of I personally would kind of want them to kind of save that till you play a Florida State, you play a Notre Dame, a team that maybe you kind of have more of an emphasis on winning. Like maybe it's like one of the more important games. Kind of catch them off guard. Like I know it's all about getting reps and getting practice, but I feel like that's kind of something you kind of save for those big games that way there's not that much film on it. So I'm not mad that Cade hasn't been getting in. I do think it would be good for him in his development to get some reps when we're up by 30 in the fourth quarter. Um, but I also it'll happen. So I'm not too worried about that.
Mhm. Another thing to point out, we had a little bit of excitement in the punt return category. We had Will Taylor 2 months, one that wasn't his fault, one that was absolutely on him, where you think he took his eye off the ball. He's got it. I mean, every if you're sitting next to me in the games, you'll know I'm constantly yelling out to whoever's punt returning, 2 hands on the damn ball, get your hands on there. The most important thing is securing that catch. So hopefully he gets that figured out. We've got Antonio Williams starting to do some punt returns too. He had a 20-yard return. Um, so there's a lot of weapons on this team, and it's always a next man up mentality. So I think that's the good with this team is all that competition. You're gonna get that fixed quick, or someone else is gonna start fixing it for you.
Me personally, I think that they should both be on the field when they're returning, kind of set up a two returner look. I think it adds just a little bit of who we're going to kick it to, like what are we going to do, and then you can also run some trick plays out of that I think would be interesting because, like you said, they're both threats. They're both once you get the ball in their hands, they're playmakers, so they'll do what they need to do with the ball. Adding that in could be a little wrinkle that makes people focus a little bit more on special teams, and it could lead to mistakes elsewhere. So I think it's the same. To me, it's like having two running backs on the field at the same time, like having Ship and Maffa or Kobe Pace, like having them on the field at the same time gives the defense that much more to think about. I'm a fan of running both of them out there and make them choose who to punt it to, and then you figure you get one extra blocker down there for when the rush comes and man up everybody else besides the punter and the long snapper, and I like our chances on that. So I personally I think it'd be kind of a cool little wrinkle to throw Antonio Williams and Will Taylor back there together. Um, but if it is just going to be the one back there, Will Taylor's just gotta. It's I mean I've tried catching a punt before. It's hard. Let's get some reps in, and if Antonio Williams keeps racking off 20-yard returns, maybe it's time to look at him back there because that's what you want. I also wouldn't be opposed to having Will Taylor and Antonio back there on kicks, give Shipley a little break, prevent him from potentially getting hurt. But I think that they kind of envision him as like a CJ Spiller type player that can bring that electricity on the kickoff return. So and especially with Spiller being his coach, I wouldn't be surprised if that's behind their reasoning there.
I think that the team so far have been giving a lot of respect to that expected, big play opportunity that Shipley brings to the kick return. I mean, you've seen a lot of pooch kicks where they've been trying to get into Drew Sweeney's hands on kick return to try and keep it out of Will's. We eventually started figuring out that we could put Antonio Williams there, and suddenly we've got two guys that can make big plays. I agree. I would personally prefer to not have Shipley out on kick return. I think that he's too valuable for the offense to risk something on where most of the time you're going to be looking to take a touchback.
Right.
Maybe you give Will Taylor a chance back there or Antonio Williams, and you try and put pressure on the defense like that. But that so far, I think it's kind of giving what they want, where they're either trying to kick it through the end zone or they're trying to pooch it. So
I mean, if we want to keep making people kick it to our own 40-yard line, I'm fine with starting there every drive. Like if they want to keep doing that,
yeah,
that's fine with me.
I I just hate having good field position. It's so
I know,
annoying.
right?
Can't rack up the stats then.
Mm.
Yep. So overall, we're looking at the Atlantic Coast Conference after this week. Big week. We had NC State and Florida State with a thriller.
Why
NC
do
State
you
able to come.
why do you throw the ball there? I don't understand that. Florida State should have won that game. I do not understand why you threw the ball there.
So that play, there was or that was actually their first touchdown pass to Michael Pittman. Was that same play, that same concept with sticks and out, coupled with that seam fade. Uh, in that first one, they had press coverage across the board, and so Michael Pittman was able to beat his man, and that's how that play worked. And then you're looking at the interception, and all of a sudden, if you look at it, you've got the secondary more in a blanketed coverage. They're backed off, able to stick with him more and get in the way. I think that was just I don't like the play call. I think that you run the ball, you center it, you know where you're at that point. You should have. I think that hindsight 2020. Obviously, we think we know better, but I think that pretty much the whole college football world was thinking, why on earth are you passing the ball when you've got timeout and all you need is a field goal with no time left?
Really quick, are you saying Micah or Michael? Because I think it's Micah.
Micah.
Yeah.
Nick trying to call me out again.
I thought I heard Michael, so I was wanted to make sure. I think the
Hey,
reason
it's
that
me.
they
It's me. It's very likely that I said the name wrong. I apologize, Micah Pittman. I meant you. Please forgive me. I try.
I think their reasoning behind it was I don't think they have the confidence in their kicker, but I feel like logic speaking, like you got to have some faith at one point in the kid. You can't risk throwing an interception there. Like I think NC State had one more timeout, or they didn't have any more timeouts left. Florida State had a timeout where they could have centered it. I think it was like what was it, like a 3rd and 2 that they threw it on too? Like it didn't make any
They
sense to me.
had they
Like
had another play.
if you're gonna throw the ball in that moment, why take a shot to the end zone to try to win it there? Why not run like an underneath route or something more intermediate where you're less likely to throw an interception than on a fade, on a jump ball. I when I was watching the play, I could not believe it. And it's the same thing with Texas A&M. Like, how are you going to throw the ball when you need 2 yards? How are you going to throw the ball 1 yard? Coming back, like it wasn't even like a route where the receiver would have been running towards the end zone. He was coming back to the ball. Why is the ball going there? I don't know. I those two decisions happening within 20 minutes of each other really baffled me. Like I couldn't believe what I was watching.
They're just trying to give Richard Sherman some more PTSD.
Well, he had enough of that Thursday night game.
Yeah, that Thursday night game apparently wasn't enough. They're trying to give him some more.
Gosh.
So you got a thriller there. Now that puts Florida State with 2 losses in the conference, and then 4-2. They are technically still ahead of NC State in the Atlantic standings just because they have more wins. But they're still in third behind good old little Syracuse. Syracuse having a great year this year. So far undefeated. They're going to play NC State this week. Can they come out with a winning and be undefeated to go the next week against Clemson at high noon? We'll find out. But they're having a good season this far, looking like they can get bowl eligible very soon. NC State will come out. Now they've still got a chance. They've got everything in front of them. They just they're looking for Clemson to lose one, maybe two. Really need 2 games lost by Clemson in order for them to get back into the driver's seat of the Atlantic. But they got to keep winning their games to keep that pressure on. Wake Forest, the same kind of thing. Those 2 teams are going to play soon. Or no, yet they haven't played yet. So they're going to play soon, and so the Atlantic is still very much bunched up But with Clemson already having four ACC games, they're in a big driver's seat where there's limited opportunity for teams to get those needed wins against Clemson to help out the Florida the NC State and the Wake Forest of the conference.
This is also the last road ACC game that Clemson will have this year. They get Louisville at home, they get Miami at home, and they get Syracuse at home. So I think if you're a team, if you're an NC State or Wake Forest, even an outside chance of Florida State, but they're going to need a lot of help at this point. You're pulling for the Noles this weekend because they 37 in a row, the real Death Valley. I know we talked about. I wanted to talk about that, but if you're Wake Forest or NC State, you're pleading that Florida State can pull it off this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll definitely get more into the real Death Valley with our next show tomorrow. But yeah, I agree, Nick. 37 games straight, it's tough. You're asking a lot of a Louisville team that's been struggling in the ACC this year, and then a Miami team that started off hot and since has, I think, lost 3 straight. So
I think so.
It's a big, yeah. It's a tall order. And then you've got the Coastal, North Carolina and Georgia Tech right now in the lead for the Coastal. Good old Georgia Tech fire Jeff Collins, and then all of a sudden find some magic and they go into Pittsburgh and they beat Pittsburgh. And then they had the Dukies come to them and Duke looking real good, 4-1 record. Only loss was to Kansas in a tough game in Lawrence. And Georgia Tech says, "Nah, I'm back. I'm ready." Georgia Tech. Let's give it up to the Yellow Jackets. This is their season was about to go real bad, and they're sitting 3-3, 2-1 in the conference. Only losses to Clemson. Like, people are talking.
Yeah, I'll put it this way: if they end up in the ACC championship, I will gladly take Georgia Tech again. I don't know what kind of fumes they're running on right now. I got to give them credit for not giving up on their season. I would not mind another rematch with them. I think that would be fun. Looking at the Coastal, there's no team that really scares me. And I could be wrong, but North Carolina, their offense is good, but I think our strength of the team has always been our defense. I think that our offense is, if they can keep building up by the time they would be playing UNC, I think it'd be over because they can't stop anything. Miami, again, we'll find out more about them later this year, but they're not the highest on my list of teams that I think could win. Duke, again, any team that loses to Georgia Tech, I'm not sure about. Virginia, I love Tony Elliott, but I think he was the problem last year. I think you look at Virginia and they're just not doing it. And same goes for Virginia Tech. Again, they're struggling, and it's weird to see teams that you and I grew up with where they were always good. Like I still remember that first Virginia Tech Clemson ACC championship game, and no one thought we were going to win. So there's not many. I'm not worried about the Coastal. I think it'll be funny. Oh, and Pitt. I mean, Pitt, they still got some players, so they could always put something together. They're still ranked at the beginning of the year, but again, it's Pitt.
How about Pitt's running back? Is he going off 320? I think it was, in 6 touchdowns, right?
Yeah, on like 36 carries.
Dude was a monster.
Unreal. Props to him. That was a heck of a game.
And I missed I missed Syracuse, or they had their bye this week, right?
Who, Syracuse? No, I think they played.
Yeah.
When they play Wagner.
Oh, I wonder. I don't know. Either way, I was trying to find out. Yeah, I was wondering if I missed Sean Tucker's latest tweet. That dude after games talking about his performance, I love it.
They did have a bye
never
week.
Satisfied. Yeah. So was he satisfied on the bye week? Do we know?
I don't know. I mean, so many things could go wrong in a bye week. So waiting on it.
You don't want to lose the bye week. I think Syracuse low-key won the bye week this week with Florida State losing, and just the way that things led in. right now, with them being the only other undefeated team in the Atlantic, the Syracuse is happy where they're at, I think, right now. So
And
big
something I
big
never
week coming up. Big weeks coming up in the ACC. Every game matters. I mean, we're getting to the meat of the schedule, boys.
before we end things, I want to hear your opinion. What do you think the line is for the Syracuse NC State game in Syracuse?
I think you've got NC State as a favorite, 5.5.
Syracuse minus 3.5.
Wow.
ESPN gives Syracuse a 58.7% chance of winning. NC State's at 41.3. So the Orange are favored in this
There
game.
you go, Orange. I'm doubting you right now. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Cover. You know
I
what
think
we say? What we say on this show: good
good.
teams win, but great teams cover.
Yes, sir. So I think that this is the matchup in the ACC I'm most looking. Besides, obviously, Clemson, Florida State. This is the matchup I'm most forward to looking. You know what I'm trying to say. NC State backs against the wall, can't lose again. Syracuse undefeated, feeling it a little, feeling some juice. I'm ready to see what the Syracuse team is about. I think that this is going to be a good game. I'm just obviously have some family ties to NC State, have some friend ties to Syracuse. So either way, I know some people that I can laugh at. But I think I'm excited for this game. I think it's gonna be a fun game. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, you heard it here, guys. Look out for the Syracuse NC State game this week. So I think that's all we've got for today. Join us next time on Tailgate Talk. We've got some fun stuff planned for next time. So definitely tune into that show.
Yes, sir. Go Tigers, everybody.
Go Tigers.